Okay, cool. I guess we are live. Let me know, guys, if you are able to hear me. Just drop a quick yes or no in the chat if I'm audible to everybody. I'm audible, guys. Say a yes or no in the chat if possible. And looks like everything is good to go. Suryansh, nothing in plan as such, but yeah, cool, cool. Okay, I guess we are live. Let's start. Let's start without any further delay. Okay, just a minute. Okay, cool. So today we are going to talk about responsive design. Okay. Anybody knows what is responsive design and why exactly it is technically used altogether? It's a fundamental concept. It's a pretty fundamental concept. A lot of you guys must have already heard about it somewhere sometime, but I still want to know if anybody knows what it is, how it works, so on and so forth. Okay. So let's start talking about it. What is responsive design? Before I talk about what is responsive design, I would like to show you a couple of websites, for example. Let's say in front of you I have opened Book My Show. Okay, it's a very famous, I would say, ticket booking, like movie ticket booking website altogether, on which you can actually book movies altogether. Now interestingly, this is the web view or the web interface altogether. Now let's say if I just reduce my screen size, if I just reduce my screen size altogether, something like this. Okay, and if I keep on reducing it, you can see the whole UI has changed a bit. What are the changes that you can detect? The nav bar that was coming on the top is kind of like gone. If you expand it again, you can see the nav bar is back, but now the nav bar is gone, right? You can see on different screen sizes, the overall layout is changing pretty drastically altogether, right? Even if let's say you open a movie interface and then you start shrinking your screen size, okay? Now again, you can see the nav bar is gone, and you can see a lot of things have now shrinked a bit altogether here. Okay, let me show you a few more examples. Let me show you a few more examples. Let's say we can open, let's say, x.com, and a similar exercise we can do on x.com as well. Okay, so if I again now start shrinking, if I again start shrinking my screen size altogether, can you see when the screen is expanded on the left side, your sidebar, this particular sidebar is having all the details expanded. Whereas the moment I start shrinking, you can see the right sidebar is gone. And on the left sidebar, all the text is gone and only the icons are now present. Can you see? Right. And the more you shrink, now you can see it has fixed kind of like this, the left sidebar on the absolute left. And the overall tweets, or you can say the, whatever tweets there are, all of these tweets have shrinked. My point being, why I'm doing all of this exercise all together in front of you, my point being that resolution of the screen, like how big your screen is going to actually determine how much space you have in order to allocate it to your corresponding elements on the web page altogether, right? If you have smaller screen, then you have relatively I would say constraint on the fact that how you are going to show your UI altogether. Okay, so responsive design is kind of like an approach in web development using which you actually decide how are you going to represent your corresponding elements on smaller screens, or I would say variety of screen sizes, right? Because the screen sizes can be pretty big as well. For example, you nowadays can also cast your laptop screen, or like nowadays you also have, let's say, smart TVs as well. You can either cast your laptop screen or like just open a website directly on a smart TV altogether. Now on a television, the screen size is like humongous. What to happen in that case, right? Even when you see like very small screens, you have variety of smaller screen, like you have some very large size tablets, you have some mid sized tablets, then you have relatively larger screen sized phones, for example something like Samsung flagship phones or something. But then you have some even relatively smaller screen phones as well, right? Something like iPhone SE, very small screen phone altogether. So even there you have kind of like a variety of I would say screen size variants that you will be having in front of you while you are designing your web app. Okay, now it becomes very very important for you to understand how do you actually represent your web application on different screen sizes, because there is a highly likely chance that, let's say, I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say you are making a portfolio of yourself for applying to some particular, I would say, applications or something. And let's say some recruiter got your resume, and they are maybe trying to open your resume on their mobile phone only. On your resume, you have actually put the link of your portfolio, and they open your portfolio. Now your portfolio is going to be opened on a recruiter's mobile phone. I'm just giving a hypothetical situation altogether, right? In that case, again, your portfolio that you have made, if it is not aligning properly to the mobile phone, they will not be able to understand what good work you have already done, right? Similar things can occur in multiple other places as well. And apart from that, there are some applications which do not altogether try to support any kind of responsiveness. Like a lot of times, if you will see some IDEs, let's say IDE1, like I'm not saying exactly IDE1, but there are alternatives to IDE1 which do not even work on mobile phones altogether, because the whole purpose of IDE is to code something. Generally, people are not going to code directly from a mobile phone, although there are a lot of IDEs that do support mobile responsive UI as well. But a lot of there can be applications which do not support mobile interfacing, because they do not expect their users to be on the corresponding mobile phone altogether. That's the important part, and that's where responsive designing comes into the picture. So you can say it is an approach using which we try to define our web apps in such a way that they look stunning they look stunning on variety of screen sizes. Okay, on variety of screen sizes. The main goal the main goal to make a web app responsive is to make sure our users are able to visit and consume the features without without any issues altogether. Okay, this is something that you have to keep in mind. Cool. Now let me show you something. Right, so you can have variety of screen sizes. Let's say three things into consideration. Let's say we can take a desktop screen into, or let's say a laptop screen into consideration. Okay, let's say there is a desktop screen. Then let's say you have a relatively smaller tablet, right? You have, let's say, a tablet screen. Okay, and then let's say you have a mobile phone screen altogether, right? You have a mobile phone screen altogether. This is your mobile phone. You can see on all of these three screens, there is different in all aspects altogether, right? You can see on the mobile phones, you have very less space as compared to that of a desktop or a laptop. So how do you align your elements from your desktop to the mobile UI is something which is very, very crucial, right? Tablets on the other hand comes kind of like in between, right? Tablets on the other hand kind of like comes in between. And you also need to understand what kind of a user base you have. If your users are going to majorly consume your content on mobile phones, then it makes a lot of sense to focus on mobile responsive UI altogether. If your I would say consumers are like not going to consume anything on your mobile phone, and let's say majorly they are going to consume it on a tablet or a desktop, that's a different sense altogether. That's why a lot of companies do also one thing, that they launch a separate mobile app altogether. And whenever you go to their website from a mobile phone, they will ask you to redirect yourself to the mobile apps that you can download from the Play Store and App Store. But that's a proper business decision that comes into the picture. We as developers, we need to make sure that we know that how we are able to translate our desktop apps, I would say desktop based web apps, to mobile compatible screens altogether. Make sense, everybody? Hi, bhaiya, Ashutosh this side. Hey, Ashutosh. I've got an offer. I've got an offer for React 2+ year role, but haven't worked on React professionally. Have made projects live e-commerce personally. Any tips and resource to learn how React works in real projects? Singsa. So I can recommend you one thing. So there are a lot of I would say YouTube channels which broadcast some interesting React conferences. For example, React Nexus, React Conf, right? React Rally altogether. In all of these conferences, a lot of seasoned software engineers who have worked a lot on production level React, and even some of them have contributed to the React code base, talk about a lot of React internals and a lot of latest React additions altogether, right? what you can do is you can try to watch them. Just go to YouTube and search for React Rally, React Conf, React Nexus, etc., etc., and you will get tons and tons of video content that people have put for free from these conferences. And all of these people are actually working in the industry. They're contributing as a software engineer. So eventually you will learn a lot. Okay. Harsh, we will be launching it post like 3 months from now. Abhi 3 mahine tak, we don't have a plan. Probably like we'll be launching it around October maybe or October end. Sure, sure. Maybe we can do that. We can make such kind of video, but मेरे को ऐसा लगता है like you should not try to escape from DSA too much. मतलब अब पूछ रहे हैं तो कर लो भाई. Tomorrow I have an interview. Wish me luck. Good luck. What interview do you have? You can tell us, and maybe we can help you with some prep. But I believe you have less time. So good luck for your interview, and hopefully you will do good. Okay, cool. Any more questions from anyone, or shall we resume altogether? Cool. Okay. So I'll just put this here. I'll just very quickly put this here. Okay. Cool. Now, how to achieve responsiveness? How to achieve responsiveness for the web apps? For the web apps. Okay. Cool. So to write responsive apps, responsive web apps, we can use CSS media queries. CSS media queries. Now, why do you need media queries and how media queries are actually helpful? Like CSS is that part of your, I would say, web infrastructure where you actually write the code to beautify the elements on the screen. And technically, properly representing your elements on different screen sizes is part of the beautification. Can I say that? If it is part of the beautification, it makes sense to handle all of these things through CSS. Okay. Showing elements properly on different screen sizes is part of the beautification of our application, and hence it makes sense to handle it using CSS media queries. Okay, now you might be thinking, what is CSS media queries? Okay, what is CSS media queries? Trust me, it is one of the most easiest concept that CSS has ever introduced. There are relatively harder concepts that exist in CSS which are way more difficult to understand when compared to that of media queries, right? But this is a relatively easier thing. This is a relatively easier thing to go for. Okay, now what are media queries? What are media queries? Let me talk about it in a nutshell. Media queries are rules that will be applied to specific screen sizes. Okay, media queries are nothing but rules that will help you to apply specific styles to specific screen sizes. Okay, that will help us to apply specific styles to specific screen sizes. That means you can define how your application is going to look on a particular size and how it should look on a different size altogether, right? And you can choose various characteristics to decide the, I would say, rules and the sizes. Like you can use the screen size, you can use the resolution, device characteristic. You can use a lot of things in order to decide what type of CSS rules are going to fit for you in which particular screen size. Okay, so in a nutshell, in simple terms, what you're going to do is you're going to define screen sizes and you're going to define CSS for those screen sizes. That's it. It's a like pretty brute force solution altogether, right? That you have, you know, that there will be 3-4 different type of sizes or the range of sizes as well. It's not like you have to define for a particular specific size. You can define for a range of sizes as well, and then you just decide those range of sizes and put some CSS for them. Whenever the screen size will be coming in a particular specific range, a particular type of a styling is going to be applied altogether. So this is the power of media queries, that they help us to decide a range of sizes on which CSS rules can be applied. Okay, because we cannot be sure that always the user will be having a specific size of a screen. Size of the screens can change, specifically with mobile phones, right? So we don't want to be bound on a very specific, I would say, metric or a very specific size. Instead, having the scope of range of sizes, that actually makes more sense, right? Because if you will be having range of sizes, you will be able to decide or determine that probably this kind of all of these kind of devices lie in this particular range. Using the ranges for sizes, we will be able to group devices into separate ranges, and then style a group of devices together. Now that's an interesting part, right? That you are able to group a huge bulk of devices together and put CSS for all of them, because a huge bulk of devices are coming in the range of sizes. For example, width of some devices is greater than X pixels and less than Y pixels. Then all of those devices are going to come in one particular range. Because if you see most of the mobile phones, like they have like very small delta of change of width here and there, right? And that is something that we can actually determine, right? So this is what CSS media queries are. And now what we're going to do is we are going to see that how you can write media queries, how they can actually help you, and how eventually you will be able to make an application responsive altogether. Let me take some questions. Sure, Abhishek, we can take some live for that as well. Where I know front end but struggling to get a job. I'm passed out student. I know HTML, CSS, JS, and React. Try to expand your stack more. Try to learn back end. Try to cover full stack eng altogether so that you can apply to more jobs. I would say that, and try to make some more impactful projects. Maybe that is the problem that you're facing. Should I learn Next.js or backend? I believe knowledge of backend is very important. Like if you know full stack, like front end, backend separately, onboarding to Next.js is not going to be much of a task. Does anyone have a chance to get a job in abroad with 1+ year of Java full stack versus Mon? A year of experience, Java full stack versus Mon. Okay, for the first question, yes, you can get a chance. Like I was 1 year experience when I interviewed for Bloomberg London, and I was able to get the offer. So I believe you can do that. For Java full stack versus Mon, I believe you can choose Mon or Java, anything. Java is used more in enterprises. Mon is used in more, I would say, startups. If you will do one, onboarding to other one is not going to be much of a task. So I don't know. Okay, cool. So can you share your experience about upgrading yourself with technologies, how you get to know which technology is going to give you value at the end, and how to learn any new tech? I believe while working, I try to make sure that whatever work I have to do, I learn about that, those kind of things. For example, if in work I have to work on Kafka, I'll start learning about Kafka. What is Kafka? Where it is used? What are the entry cases? What are alternatives to Kafka in some certain situations? Try to implement a small project with Kafka, things like that. This is how I try to do it. If you'll start working somewhere, it will start making more sense. Tony, the latest Mon Stack and the front end dev course is all in Hindi only, so you can check it out. Right? You can go to courses.algocamp.io/learn. Okay, and you can go to, if you want to just learn the front end dev, you can go to the Elite 2.0 or the Mon Stack one. Both of these are in Hindi only, so you can check it out. Daffodils, just mail us at algocamproot@gmail.com. We'll help you with the Discord link. Any advice for people working on low code platform like WordPress and want to switch to product based IT companies? I believe what you guys can do is try to make sure that you explore making some projects yourself and try to switch as soon as possible. The later you switch, I believe the more time you lose. There is no point of losing time. Try to make a switch as soon as possible. Okay. But yeah, can you suggest some good projects? You can make a lot of good projects, I believe. Try to maybe, like recently in our backend course, we made a lead code end-to-end backend, I would say, infrastructure based on multiple microservices and everything. I also posted a video around that. Maybe try to learn from that architecture and try to make a project of your own from that. Is the 2.0 class already begun? We are doing JS revision. The actual React and DOM front end part is going to start probably from August 10 or August 15. We are doing JS revision so that if somebody doesn't know JS, they can get an idea. Okay. Cool. Coming back. Let's see. Let's come back. Okay. Okay. Now the question that might come to your mind. Now the question that might come to your mind is that, okay, now we know that there is something called as CSS media queries, but how do we use CSS media queries altogether? And like, um, where can we actually use them? What is the syntax? All of this is something that probably you might be having something in your mind. Okay. So let's try to implement a few things. Let's try to implement a few things. And using those, we will be able to technically decide that how to write media queries, and how media queries can actually help. Make sense? Everyone, does that point make sense? Are clone projects good? Yes, until or unless you just don't copy them from somewhere. Okay, so let's see how media queries work. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'll just open my text editor. Okay, just give me a second. Responsive UI. Okay, I'll open it in VS Code. Okay, I'll make just a very quickly a index.html file and a style.css file. Okay, and I'll just link both of them. Styles.css. Okay, and I'll turn up my live server. So copy, and let's do one thing. Let's bring it here. Okay, and let's combine both of these. Okay, cool. Let's just add a h1 responsive UI. Save it, and you can see we are up. We are up. Okay, cool. Now let's start making a very basic interface. Let's start making a very basic interface. With this basic interface, we will be able to technically realize that how you can write media queries altogether. Okay, cool. So let's try to make a very basic kind of like a nav bar. Okay, let's try to make a very basic nav bar kind of thing. Okay, so let's say I'll put a header tag, and inside the header I'll put a nav. Inside the nav, let's say I'll put an unordered list, and let's say I'll put a lists altogether. Can you see? So there is a set of lists technically coming up. This is what we have here. Okay. Now let's try to write some CSS. Let's try to write some CSS. Okay. So first thing first that I'm going to do is, let's say I'll pick the header. I'll pick the header and I'll give the header a height of, let's say, 100 pixels. Okay. And I'll say display flex. Okay. Display flex. And we can say, for example, let's do one thing: justify content end, save it, and you can see everything has shifted towards the end. Everything has shifted towards the end. And we can say align items center. Okay, this is good. Align items center, and we can give a background color of, let's say, aquamarine. Save it, and you can see this is the nav bar. And one more thing that we can do is we can remove the default margin and padding. So margin 0, padding 0. Okay. So what is this stars? This star is the universal selector. This star is technically the universal selector. Universal selector selects all the corresponding elements. So selecting all the corresponding elements, we are making their default margin and padding corresponding to 0. Okay, cool. Now let's go to the UL. Let's go to the UL. And first thing first that we'll do, we'll say list style type as none. Save it. And you can see those dots are gone. Those dots are gone. And for this UL, interestingly, we'll make the display flex. The moment I make the display flex for the UL, can you see all of these elements came in the same line? All of these elements now in the same line. Why? Because the default default flex direction, right, is going to be row. And then what we can do is we can give some margin towards the right. Let's say 15 odd pixels, 15 odd pixels. Okay, cool. And then what we can do is we can try to technically style each anchor tag. You can see there are these anchor tags inside every list. You have these anchor tags, right? So let's try to maybe style these anchor tags. Okay, cool. So we can say first of all text decoration to be none. Okay, and the moment we do text decoration none, all those highlighted colors are gone. The text color, let's say we have kept as black, and we have given margin 0 comma 10 pixels. Okay, we can give a maybe a background color of, let's say, white. Okay, so they have a background color of white. Okay, we can give some padding. So you can see we have some padding altogether as well. We can give some border radius, so we have some slight bit of radius. Okay, and maybe let's do one thing. Let's introduce some font weight, okay, of Boulder. Okay, save it. You can see this is kind of like a very simple navbar we have prepared. If I just expand my screen, this is how the navbar is technically looking like. Pretty simple, pretty good. It's kind of like right aligned altogether. It's kind of like right aligned altogether. And one last change that I would like to do, is, let's say if I hover on the anchor tags, I would like to change the background colors altogether. Okay, so if I hover on them, this is how they are going to work. This is how they are going to work. And I'll add a transition. Okay, I'll add a transition of, let's say, all the properties for 1 second is. Save it. And you can see we have nice looking transition coming up. I believe 1 second is too much. 0.7 seconds should be good. And now this is good. Okay, so we have a very, very basic UI coming up altogether. Now, if you will interestingly see, if I just make my screen go very small, let me put it out here. If I make my screen go kind of like very small, you can see they still come in the same line. And in fact, there are some dev tools that we can use. For example, if I go to inspect, right, if you carefully see, there is this option of toggle device toolbar. If I click here, then you can select some specific devices. For example, if I want to select, let's say, iPhone SE. So very small iPhone SE size will also start coming up. Okay. If you want to select something like iPhone 12 Pro, this is how iPhone 12 Pro might look like. And you can have some custom sizing as well. Now, can you see, for very small screen sizes, this horizontal nav bar doesn't make a lot of sense. Why? Because then a lot of content is going to be just trimmed off. And that's where responsive design comes into the picture. Now, what should be our agenda? Our agenda should be to make sure that on smaller screen sizes, we don't have them all in, maybe, let's say, same row. Maybe we can put them in different lines. And that's where media queries are going to help us. And we are going to start writing media queries here. Got it? Try to share your schedule. Okay, I can do one. I'll try. Learning in depth, 30%. Learning in depth or 30% learn, 70% build. What is good as developer? I believe the latter approach is good. Try to learn around 30 to 40% concept and then try to build something out of it. While building, you will get more interest, and maybe while building, you will get some more theoretical knowledge as well. So that is good. And if you want to get more good, like huge amount of theoretical knowledge, you will get enough time for it once you join as an engineer and like you start contributing to some startup or a company. Then eventually you will learn a lot of things step by step. So I believe, like, if you want to get a lot of theory knowledge, like design, system design, and everything, you will get eventually time. But in your early stages, you should try to focus on more execution. Yes, it's a good project. I believe real time collab tool is a good project. I did a few, Rohit. I'll probably try to add a few more also. Okay. Cool. Now we have the context around what is the basic app looking like. Now let's add some media queries. How do you add media query? So the syntax of the media query is very simple. You say at the rate media, at the rate media. Okay. What is this at the rate media? What is this at the rate media? This at the rate media is technically going to start helping you to write a media query altogether. Okay. So you can read more about this at the rate media on MDN, at the rate media MDN. Okay. So not this media, right? You can see the at the rate media is a CSS rule that can be used to apply part of style sheet based on the rule. So using at the rate media, using a syntax like at the rate media, you will be able to decide a condition, and then based on that condition only, some specific CSS rules will be technically applied. Based on that condition only, some specific CSS rules are going to be applied. Okay. And that's what we want, right? That's what we want. We want to make sure that for some specific screen ranges, we are able to apply some specific CSS rules. Okay, on some specific screen ranges, we are able to apply some specific, I would say, CSS rules altogether. So this at the rate media is a reserved keyword for CSS. Okay. Now the second argument is a media type, right? This media type decides that on what all type of media you want to put this styling. Let's say if you want to print your overall web page, do you want to put this styling in place according to the print resolution also, or you just want to put this styling in place for screens, nothing for print altogether, right? So that's what you decide. So I'll say screen, that I just want this media to be applied towards screen altogether. And then what you can do is you can say and. So this screen is the first condition, that whatever CSS rules I'm going to put, they are applicable on screens. And now you can give some media feature rules. What is some media feature rules? So you can decide that if the screen width is at least X pixels and at most Y pixels, then do this. For example, you can say max, or I would say width. For example, if I say max width 768 pixels, okay, and then you put a pair of parentheses. Now see what is happening here. Now see what is happening here. The moment you say max width 768 pixels, it means that the CSS rules inside this particular CSS block is going to be applied only to those screens which have maximum width 768 pixels. If their width is beyond 768 pixels, this is not going to be applied. Okay. So I'll write a comment here. I'll write a comment here that we will apply the below rules. We will apply the below rules only to those screens which have at most 768 pixel width, 768 pixel width. And 768 pixels are generally your mobile screen UI. Okay, if I come up here, then generally your mobile UIs, whatever mobile UI you have, they generally come approximately in the range of 768 pixels. And you can even check that. For example, if I come up here, okay, and if I do inspect, and let me put it downwards. Okay, cool. Now you can see if you go to 768 pixels, this is approximately 768 pixels. I'll maybe manually put it 767, 768. Okay, this is approximately 768 pixels altogether, right? And then below this, you have even smaller screens. So you can see 768 pixels is kind of like a decent size for a mobile phone width to be altogether, right? Mobile phone width will be somewhere around this screen size only. And you can maybe select some specific mobiles. For example, let's say Pixel 7. You can see it has 412 as the configured width altogether. Okay, so you can do something like this, and you can say that if the screen width is maximum 768 pixels or less, then we will apply it. If your screen width is beyond 768 pixels, we are not going to apply it. That is the constraint. And let's put some styling here. Let's put some styling in place. So the first thing that we will probably do is we will say flex direction to go column. Flex direction to go column. I'll just do this. The moment I do it, can you see this? The moment I cross 768 pixels, can you see everything is now in a row? The moment I come at 768 pixels or less, everything comes in a column. Can you see? This is how things are done. This is how things are done altogether. Okay. So let's start styling things properly. Let's start styling things properly. Okay. So what I can do is you can say, you can pick the header. You can pick the header and you can say justify content to go center. Okay. So see, what is going to happen is, if you have the full screen width, like properly you have the whole screen width, everything is good. Everything is good. Now, if let's say you reduce the screen width to go 768 pixels, you can see now everything is in between and it looks far better, right? If you have slightly lesser width screen, then things are in between. This looks definitely good. Okay, cool. And I can add one more rule. I can add one more rule. @media screen and max width, let's say 464, or let's see, we can maybe take 570 pixels maybe. Okay. And then we can say, for the UL, we will give the flex direction to column. The moment you do it, now if you reduce your screen size further, can you see now they are kind of like coming in the same column, and we can give them a margin bottom of, let's say, 5 pixels. Save it, and you can see they're going to have some margin, but they don't have enough height. So we can increase the height of the header. So let's say the header height we can increase to 150 pixels odd, right? And let's say instead of margin bottom, let's say align items to center and justify content as space around. Save it. Okay, cool. And if you go here, you can see now they are kind of like coming up in this space, right? And if I just show you the exact configuration, and you can see when we are at 768 pixels, you can see at 769 we are back right aligned. Now we are in the center, and the moment we go less than 570 pixels, here you can see we are now in a column. You can see that's the power of media rules. Altogether, or I would say media queries altogether, that you will be able to align things properly. Based on the screen sizes. Okay, based on the screen sizes. So now using this, you will be able to do a lot of things. For example, now currently, if you go here, and if you go to the HTML, now you can see this is the anchor tag, this is the UL tag. If you see how much width the UL tag is taking, let's try to find it out. Inside the header, we have the nav. You can see this is the UL tag's size, right? If I reduce the size more, you can see this is the width of the UL tag, and this is the width of the nav tag. This is the header. So let's try to do one thing. We can say the nav tag is going to take width 100%, and the UL tag is also going to take width 100%. So 100% width means 100% width of the parent. The moment I do this, you can see now nav tag and li tag both nav tag and UL tag both have 100% width of the header. That is looking fine. Okay, and we will do the same thing for li. That width of li is, let's say, 100%. Width of li is also 100%. Okay, now you can see what happened. Now the width of the li tag is coming 100% altogether. Now we can give a margin, let's say 0 auto. Save it. And or maybe let's do one thing. Let's control it absolutely using flex. So now let's do one thing. Let's control everything using flex. Okay, so you have the UL here, and all of these li tags now are now in the flex direction column. If you see the width of UL and if you see the width of li, everything is in place. Now what we can do is we can make the UL go display block. Okay, and let's make UL go display block, or maybe we can avoid it. Let's do one thing. Let's say, so Align items, align items, center, save it. And just a second, what is the width? 570 pixels. Let's see. So this is here. Okay. So we are on the smaller screens. Okay, this is not coming in center. Let's quickly check. Da-da-da. Okay, let's change a few things. Let's change a few things. First of all, let's make the height of the header auto so that it can automatically uh, change according to the content. Height of the header auto. Okay. And apart from that, let's make this UL. Let's make this UL go display block. Okay. Let's do one thing. Just go display block. Okay. And every li inside the ul, every li inside the ul, we are going to make it go 100%, and we are going to give it a margin of, let's say, 10 odd pixels. Okay, save it, and you can see now they have relatively far more better spacing coming up. Okay, cool. And now if you expand it, you can see things are coming in between. If you expand it more, things are coming up here. Okay, cool. And you can see different css rules are being applied. And let me add some comments. So this css rule is only going to be applied for screens which have at most 570 pixels. Now just think about it. You have decided some css rule which have screen width maximum 570 pixels. They are going to come up here. They are going to come up here. For screen width greater than 570 and less than 768 are going to come up here. And the screen width greater than 768 and beyond are going to use these kind of stylings. So you can see you have defined ranges, right? That at some specific range you are going to put some specific styling. At some specific range you are going to put some specific styling altogether. This is what we need. This is what we need. We want to actually scale up, scale down based on our need. We want to align things on our need. For example, maybe you don't even want all of this. You don't even want all of this. Let's say you say header display none. The moment you do display none, you can see on smaller screen size, your nav bar is gone. And this is a very consistent UI compare when you see Book My Show. On Book My Show, for very small screen, they just vanish off the nav bar altogether, right? So depending on what kind of an implementation you want, you can configure things altogether here. So do you have 100% live course? If not, any future plans? Yes, we do have. We do have. The current Monstack course is 100% live. The front end course is going to be live. Is it mandatory to be you? Is it mandatory for projects to be deployed? My projects use paid services from AWS like reads from S3 Common Ad Gateway. To be very honest, I didn't keep all of my projects live. I believe you can keep any one of the projects live so that you can at least show that you know how to do the deployment and everything. But people nowadays know that they can charge you for that. So if you can keep everything deployed, keep it. If you cannot, then maybe you can use some free tools as well as alternatives, or you can just keep at least one project deployed and put remaining, let's say, cloud skills, whatever you have, as the skills part in your resume. Hey Kanel, how are you doing? I struggle in my company when I'm involved in clients which have B2C websites as aesthetics is too much. Yeah, that's a problem for most of the B2C websites. But I believe you don't have to think about the color schemes and everything yourself. You get most of the styling component and everything already, and you just have to implement them. So it should not be much of an issue for us, right? Make sense, guys? Okay, cool. So now let's do one thing. So I have kind of like a sample project with me. I kind of like have a sample project with me. Let me actually show you that. Okay, and then we'll try to make it responsive. Okay, so just give me a second. Okay. Da-da-da. Okay, so let's do one thing. Okay, let's take this as a sample index.html, and we have the css as well. We have the css as well with us. Save it, and if you see the final output, okay, this is an application. I believe everybody is able to see this. I believe everybody is able to see this, right? Okay, cool. So now we have made this application, right? Now what we want is, if you carefully try to analyze, and if you make it go to smaller screens, can you see? This doesn't look very much responsive, right? Ideally, if you want to make this particular UI responsive, then these two cards should go one after another. Cards should go one after another altogether. And that's where our essence of writing, I would say, responsive CSS is going to come into the picture. So let's try to write some responsive CSS to make some changes altogether here. So I'll make the screen go slightly go smaller, and let's try to put some styling here. I'll say @media and screen, because we just, sorry, @media screen, and right. You'll say maximum width 768 pixels. For maximum width 768 pixels, we are going to change a few things. So if you carefully see, we have a dot page here class. You can see this is the page div. You can see, and you can even inspect it here. Like inspect. And if you carefully see, there is this page div. Okay, there is this page div. This page div has everything inside it. This is the order box, payment, and total. You can see this is the total one. Okay, so what I want this page to go flex column. I want maybe this page to go flex column. Or if you like, if you see current implementation we have made using grid. If you carefully see the current implementation, we have made using css grid, right? You can see we have used css grid. So we are going to configure our grid in a column fashion. How can we do that? Let's see. So we are going to modify the grid template area. Okay, and how the grid template area should look like? So we can make it order, payment, and total. If you previously see how it looks like, then it is, let me show you. Order, payment, and total. Can you see? Order, payment is in one row, total is in another row. Now we are going to make order go in one row, payment go in another row, total go in another row. The moment I save it, now for every screen that has maximum 768 pixels or less, will be applied this kind of a UI. Let's see. So if I reduce my screen size, can you see all of these actually went inside a column? And that's what we wanted, right? Okay, now you can make some more changes. First of all, if you see by default, here the grid template columns are divided one fraction. That means 1 by 2 left side. That means this order is taking 1 by 2, this payment is taking 1 by 2. Now I want every row, like order row, payment row, total row, to be completely taking the absolute end-to-end width. I can say grid template columns 1fr. The moment I do it, can you see this is all looking absolutely nice, right? You can see the whole, I would say, 2 row and 2 column based UI has been changed to 1 column altogether in each row. And that's interesting. Now you can modify each and everything specifically. Based on your use case, based on your needs, right? And these kind of simple css ruling can actually help you to modify a lot of things and make them mobile responsive altogether. Is this point making sense, guys? That how we just made some quick changes inside this implementation altogether. And the moment I expand it, you can see it's back out to its original implementation. Okay. Make sense, everybody? So try to explore around media queries, right? You can even see, I would say, media query breakpoints. Okay, so let's talk very quickly about it. So the corresponding dimensions, 768 pixels, 570 pixels that I talked about, these are called as breakpoints. Breakpoints are that, I would say, dimension points beyond which you are going to consider a new range. Okay, so you can find a lot of articles where people have defined some, I would say, good breakpoints, where people have defined some good breakpoints. So you can see, you can use maybe this browser stacks article to decide some breakpoint. For example, if you have extra small devices, that means phone which have 600 pixel width or less, like very very small phones, you can define a media query like this: media only screen and max width 600 pixels. That means maximum you're going to have 600 pixels or less. Maximum you have 600 pixels or less. Then you have small devices like portrait tablets, large phone like big Samsung phones or something, which goes 600 pixels and up. So I'll say minimum width has 600 pixels. Now all those devices which have minimum width 600 pixels or beyond are going to be covered in this media query. Okay, I'll zoom in it a bit. Then medium devices, that means landscape tablet, that means let's say iPad Pro or something, then those are going to have 768 pixels or beyond. Like these landscape tablets are at least 768 pixels, so you can put min width instead of max width. You can also configure things with min width. Then you have large devices, so everything that is beyond 992 is going to come inside this large devices range. And then you have minimum width 1200, that is 1200 or beyond. 1200 or beyond, these are going to come in extra large devices. So you can see, when you write this minimum width 768 pixels, then any screen which is at least 768 pixels or beyond will be applied this particular rule. But if the screen has, let's say, 1000 pixels, then this particular media rule will be applied, because now here it says at least 992 pixels or beyond. So if you will write these kind of media queries sequentially, things are going to make sense for you. And interestingly, there is a concept called as mobile first UI or mobile first design. In mobile first design, what happens is that if you carefully see the current implementation, the current CSS implementation of this checkout page is very, I would say, laptop oriented. Like the default CSS that we have written styles only for laptop, and then separately we are styling for example, mobile phones. What mobile first UI says is that the default CSS styling that you are going to write is going to be for mobile phones, and media queries you are going to write for bigger screens. So that's what mobile first means, that the default CSS that initially you are going to write, that's going to be end to end for mobile phones. They're not going to be supported for laptops. And for laptops or bigger screens, bigger tablets, TV screens, extra large screens altogether, you write media queries. So with mobile first UI, it's kind of like a concept, or it's kind of like a good practice. If you don't want to follow it, don't follow it. It's just that a lot of time developers kind of like don't focus a lot of their time on writing mobile responsive UI, and then eventually they have to spend like maybe a lot of bugs and everything. They have to face a lot of bugs and everything because the UI is not properly oriented. But when you're making the application in the very start altogether, if you put your default CSS, like all of this default CSS which is currently for the desktop screen, instead for the desktop screen, if you like by default put it for mobile oriented screens, and your media queries to handle your laptop or bigger screens, that's your mobile first UI. It's a very simple concept. Not it's not like anybody's going to ask you in an interview, but it's just that it's something that you should keep in mind as a software engineer while you are designing your web apps using CSS. Make sense, everyone? Okay, so that was all for today. That I just wanted to discuss in terms of responsive UI. Like these media queries and everything are pretty simple, that you can try it out. Also, if you want to explore, you can explore the advanced front-end course that we have launched on Algocamp. You can use the coupon code front-end to get some massive discounts altogether. We have allocated some really interesting and advanced projects, including like code sandbox, kind of like a clone, or Google Docs, kind of like clone. We have also added parts of React Native, so that at least you can get started with mobile apps. It's going to be a beginner React Native part as well, and so on. A lot of interesting things we have for the course, and the majority part is going to be live as well. So it's going to be a fun ride that we can have together. So you can check it out, and if you want, you can enroll it, and you can use this coupon code so that these prices will start slashing. Okay, and I believe this is going to be a good breakpoint article. You guys can check it out. Okay, I have put that in the YouTube chat, so you can check it. Okay, I'll just show it on the screen as well. That being said, let's wrap today's session here, guys. We're going to meet soon in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Have a great week ahead, and keep coding, everyone.